This is the Unspoken Podcast on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
That is right. You are listening to the Unspoken Podcast. It's episode 50. Oh my God, we've actually gotten to 50 episodes. I'm Nick Fodera, along with my co-hosts Tom Albano and Nick Morgasen. Oh my God, it's been a year.
I'm lost for words. It's been a year. Can't believe I'm so coughed up. I can't even have words for this, and I'm surprised we haven't had rotten tomatoes or rotten eggs thrown at us.
Don't give them ideas. They'll never stop.
All right, so it's a big episode, big celebration. Everything is it's an amazing time. It's a big milestone for this show and for the Undetermined Podcast Network, but we got a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it. So for those of you who have been living on Mars for the past couple of weeks, well, we were off last week, so we can't blame you if you're not caught up. But you wouldn't think that the Giants situation could get any worse, right? They're 2-13 now, right?
Yeah, I mean that situation is bad, and we all know they're going to get a top 3 pick, which is probably going to be Rosen or Mayfield, and that's pretty much that. But
but it gets worse. It gets worse, friend.
Wait, Nick.
Yeah,
Nick. You know what this calls for?
what?
New York Giants.
Yes, we're going to the circus. Oh my God. Oh, I can't. See, the circus keeps going. I don't know when it stops. There are clowns everywhere. Wherever I look, it just shit keeps going crazy. But yeah, for those of you who hadn't heard, so tell me what you think of Eli Apple.
what do I think of Eli Apple? I think there's not much to think of Eli Apple except for his mother working for ESPN and SI and doing Campbell's soup commercials. But that's besides the point. But I have some interesting audio if you want to hear from his stepbrother who decided to go off on Eli Apple's mother.
Oh, play it.
So, of course, it would come from TMZ. And before I play this audio, I want to emphasize that family tends to way over-exaggerate a situation that somebody
as families are wont to do.
So, here's audio from a guy named Dane Blackson, who's Eli's half-brother, and they have the same mother. So, and basically, he goes on to say that Annie Apple, who's his mother, is pulling the strings of Eli Apple, and basically tells basically blaming his mom, saying it's his effing mom. It's his fucking mom. It's fault.
Oh, play the audio. And it is.
People say Eli is like a cancer. I mean, I feel like when you say, I just think of mom. When people refer, like, when people say like words and like they use those type of adjectives, I feel like he never had a fair shot. I mean, a lot of the shit that you could be judging him on, you know what I'm saying? There's really a master behind them pulling the strings. You know what I'm saying? So as far as Eli really being the cancer, I don't really see Eli being the cancer more than I just see like mom being the cancer. You know what I'm saying? And him just not being able to separate himself. I feel like with the whole Landon Collins situation, I feel like what made it tricky is I feel like he definitely confided in Eli. Or Eli confided in him about just everything that was going on. You know what I'm saying? He probably said a little bit of incriminating, things about, because, there's everyone saying like he has family issues or there's family members that he has to cut off. But nobody can come right out and just be like, yo, it's his fucking mom. It's a damn shame, dude. Like how one person can really honestly, Eli's agents, you know what I'm saying? All his people, like his financial team, all those motherfuckers, bro. They don't like Annie. You know what I'm saying? Nobody like Annie. But I mean, as far as them voicing it, I don't hear it too much. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not going to make themselves look like that to Eli. So that's what my job is here for. I mean, mommy and daddy got you here. But hopefully, if he listens to his big brother, he'll be able to stay here and dominate shit for a long time instead of worrying about how everybody else is feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Sir, that's all very interesting, but all I asked was, do you want fries with that?
well, basically, to put that audio in question, we need to we need to take a step back. So
yes, context is necessary.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So Landon Collins went on the Michael Kay show with Bob Wischusen, filling in and hosting, and basically Landon Collins went on and called Eli Apple a cancer to the team.
Well, he didn't say the words. He didn't actually name Eli Apple. He said that first pick. He was being very evasive.
Oh, please. Everyone knows.
We all know who he was talking about.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
we know who he was talking about. He was trying to say it without saying it.
Oh, stop. We knew what he was saying. You know what? When you have to be careful when you're on the media, because now with social media and radio and TV, everything is under contextual facts. So he didn't do a good job of hiding it.
Oh, no. But he's going to do... Well, we can agree that Eli Apple, well, this season, I mean, even his Giants career, it's not been what we as fans or really the management expected it to be.
Right.
No, absolutely not. As I said, he has all the potential in the world, but his attitude, he just throws everything away.
He does, and it was emblematic when he got torched in San Francisco against the Niners a couple of weeks back. That he just gave up. This team just gave up, and he is really a microcosm of that. And I don't blame him. I mean, personal issues are personal issues, but you gotta try and let this stuff roll off your shoulder. And
you can't fight with everybody.
Yeah, and I think honestly, if this we would not have heard any of this had they not been going through a 2-13 season.
No, you're right. From the sense of, if you were having a 13-2 season instead of a 2-13 season, you'd probably hear none of this. Or if you did hear this, they'd say, "Oh, wait, they're having a winning season. We shouldn't care." So basically, I think the way this season has spiraled out of control, being in the New York media capital of the world, everything gets out.
Yeah, and whether it's leaked or let out intentionally. And well, look, I'm not here to bash Landon Collins because he's still been a leader for that team when they desperately need one.
Been an all pro
selection.
He's been an all pro now.
He could have been a little bit more tactful though about it.
Yeah, I mean, no. I'm just saying, like, he on the field wise, he's been phenomenal. But yeah, considering Eli Apple's mom has cancer and every shitty thing that happens, maybe it wasn't the best. As I said, if I were the general manager, I talked to you guys at the pre-show meeting, I would be pulling them into the room, Collins some money, and to a cancer society. I tell Eli Apple that his attitude has to stop, and then I would tell both of them, you only have to see each other for one more week. Don't have to see each other ever again for months.
No, it makes sense. But what's really frustrating to me is that I suppose you could basically say this has just been the way this season has gone. Everything has gone wrong.
Right. And the way that this season has gone, excuse me, it's led to a lot of different issues and basically it's led to a point where they need to make changes, and we already saw them make a few changes already.
Yes, we actually have some news to break. It came out yesterday that they have a new general manager, the Giants do, and they hired Dave Gettlemen, late of the Panthers job. He spent the last 4 years in Carolina under Jerry Richardson, basically building the team that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And what do you think? Good hire, bad hire? What do you think?
It's an interesting hire because, excuse me, is that he was in the Giants organization before he ever was hired. I mean, after he was hired by the Panthers.
The director of player personnel for 15 years, right?
Yes. And I guess you could say it was an in-circle hire, I guess you could say, because he was with the Giants organization. But here's the interesting thing I heard about Gettleman, which is that he is a number of a value in his head guy, meaning that he sticks a value to somebody, and if you don't like it, too bad, get lost. So
it's the same thing that happened with Josh Norman and Steve Smith when he cut him a couple of years ago. In fact, was it a couple of years ago that they were cut?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
it was.
That's what.
And that's one of the biggest concerns that they have.
Yeah, it is one of the biggest concerns that they have, because what exactly is he going to take a hatchet to? I wonder. We might actually.
If you got to think about this, all the personality in New York. That's what they were talking about on First Take earlier today. All the personalities in New York. How is he going to get along with them?
It's a question of can personalities can you have more than 5 cooks in the kitchen, basically?
No, that's a good point, and he's definitely, depending on the moves he makes, he could not, win many friends. I mean, especially among the players, especially if he's as cold-blooded as they say he is.
But do you guys feel like we need some sort of disciplinarian on the team after this season?
Yes, I do. I
agree.
Normally I'm against, being the stern big man. I'm going to teach you children how to be men, because you're still playing a kid's game. You're getting paid to do it. I mean, come on, lighten up. But still, we've seen this year is basically a breakdown on all fronts, from leadership to play on the field to conduct off the field, and something needs to change, and it looks like they brought Gettleman in to be the instrument of that change.
Well, I don't know if bringing in the big bad man, as they say, is the answer to this Giants team, because as we saw, that really didn't work. So, in my opinion, they need to go to a more X's and O's guy, but not an aggressive military guy, like the guy in the Geico commercial, the namby-pamby military guy.
Yeah, Arleon. basically do what Greg Schiano did in Tampa Bay, and everybody hated him.
Yeah, because he was like a fucking military guy who, if you basically didn't do things, you had to do like 100 push-ups.
Which...
Well, now, here's the thing. We only have half of the answer now. Now with Gettleman as the general manager, who do you think makes the appropriate head coach?
Well, here's the rule, though, apparently with the Giants organization. So whoever was the GM gets to hire the coach. So he's going to be responsible. The ownership doesn't want to be responsible. You think they just want to be a bank.
Oh yeah, you don't want the situation with Woody Johnson a couple of years ago when they fired Rex.
That was just flat out awful.
And we'll get to what the Jets did. We'll get to that in a minute. But I think the people that he will consider, I have a hard time deciding about whether he's going to go from within the organization or without it, because I'm hearing that he might actually look at some of the people in the old coaching staff when he was with the Panthers. He might actually look from guys that aren't who was it in the Patriots?
There were some people, and then I also heard Harbaugh was a name they were throwing around. I heard,
God, no.
and another name which you'll probably laugh at, Nick Saban.
Oh my God, Satan in a crew cut himself.
Yeah, but I heard Harbaugh and Saban were like more last resort kind of choices. One name that I've heard thrown around is Mike Smith, I think his name is, the old Atlanta coach.
Yes, I actually heard that name, and I was surprised about that name. I was surprised about those other two names. I heard they promised Spagnuolo a interview to be the head coach next season.
Yeah, which I think should be, thank you for your service, but don't let the door hit you with a good Lord split you. Plus, we really don't need Harbaugh. We need a disciplinarian, but we don't need that guy because that guy, when the guy farts, he's angry.
Let's put it this way. So you have two of the worst head coaches in all of football right now, I think, in New York, between Todd Bowles and Steve Spagnuolo, or you could basically call that vacant at this point.
Yes. So this space for rent.
I mean, it's kind of like when you play Monopoly and everyone's trying to get around the board to get boardwalks so they can purchase the most expensive property. And so when you land on it, you have to pay $2,000. But now
they're the short line railroad.
Well, that, and also it's like when you land on the property and you have to mortgage all your properties, and now those are up for rent again. So now, basically, it's Monopoly money, and it's up for rent.
But we'll see what happens, and I don't think. You know what? People say, "Oh, it depends on how they finish." It really doesn't, because he's gonna be tearing the whole thing down, or most of it down anyway. And he said all the right things. They introduced him in the press conference today, as of the time we're recording this, and he actually said, Gettlemen actually did say, "My job is to kick ass," which is exactly what I want to hear.
I hope that means getting a quarterback as their number one overall. Well, I should say overall pick, but in their first round pick.
It also means fixing the O-line, because that all the shiny new quarterbacks in the world aren't going to do jack shit nothing if you don't get an O-line to protect them.
And it means, and I'm sorry to say this, but it means make an example and letting go of Eli Apple.
Well, yeah, they're going to have to let go of Eli Apple at one point, but what I think, it's kind of contradicting in a sense. I know there's three amazing quarterbacks that are going to be at the top of the draft class, but you're going to have, they want to bring back fucking Eli Manning for another season or two. So what are they going to do? Well, it makes sense because they're going to let that quarterback probably learn under Eli, but I don't know. Like, if they don't take one of those quarterbacks, they're going to get crucified by the New York media.
Yeah, because everybody's expecting them to take Darnold if he declares, or Rosen.
Or Mayfield.
Well, yeah, or Baker Mayfield. But Rosen's injury history does give me pause. But we'll get to...
And Mayfield.
When April rolls around,
consider he's a bit of a character himself.
He is, yes.
Yeah. And when April rolls around, we'll get a bit deeper into the draft. But as far as we go here, I think that's a decision. Don't you think that's a decision that should be left in the hands of the coach, or do you think Gettlemen will handle it all the way?
You talk about the draft?
Yeah, who they draft.
I think that's going to be up to the GM. I think that's going to be up to Gettlemen. That's his job. So, and Jerry Reese did a horrendous job over the past 4 or 5 years in the draft.
Please,
so
don't remind me.
So, I would think anyone is better than Jerry Reese at drafting at this point. But
every time I hear the name Eric Flowers, I start punching air.
Especially when you consider that we could have gotten freaking Todd Gurley.
Don't remind me.
So that's the thing. We need offensive linemen. We need a quarterback, and I think we need a running back. That's what our draft needs are.
And I'm sure Gettlemen already knows who he's going to go after, because I'd imagine that was part of the interview process.
So basically, you're asking for heaven to come down from the sky to help the Giants.
Yeah, pretty much.
Divine intervention.
Okay, that's what I thought. But let's transition a little bit over to the Jets side of things, because now I'm going to scream a little bit because.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So before you get to screaming, context is necessary again. So we found out. Well, the Jets are in the midst of a 5-10 season, right? That's their record up until this point.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They've been going through quarterbacks like like I kill slices of pizza, but it's that's another New York team where nothing has gone right this season. So you would think that a bit of a culture change is in order, but that's what a sane person would do. So bring us home. What did the Jets do, Nick?
See, I thought that was a good example, but I was going to say it's like the Jets quarterback situation is like an ice cream cone where you keep the same cone, but the ice cream keeps melting from the top of the ice cream cone.
Yeah,
But,
it keeps falling down.
yeah, but yours was good. But I'm getting off topic. But basically, the situation that we're in, this is according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, the contract extensions, well, let me say it this way. The Jets gave contract extensions to Todd Bowles and GM Mike McCagnon for 2 years each through 2020.
Congratulations, Jets. You Jets. You are something else. You are, you know the phrase genius? No, you are gene-us.
You just stole that from somebody. I don't know who says that usually, but
It's the definition of the Jets right now.
I know.
I've heard of failing upwards, but this is goddamn ridiculous because there's failing upwards and then there's slipping on a banana peel, getting trapped in a rocket, and going into the moon.
No,
That's
no. This Jet situation is like tripping up the stairs. Like it doesn't happen. So basically, you know what this calls for, Nick? This calls for, I think the end of the world has come.
It's not
And the
Women
end is,
and children first.
and I think an asteroid has headed towards Earth, and it's about to hit the Jets facility. And I don't understand this.
No, wait, I think that's actually Rex Ryan.
Oh yeah, you're probably right. Well, actually, he lost weight, so you can't fat shame him completely.
Hey, I'm a fat guy. I can. All right. I'll give you that. But asteroids can be skinny. But what I don't understand is you kept not glad handing the fans, but everybody, all Jets fans seem to be in agreement that something needs to change. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're right. In the sense, I thought they were going to fire Todd Bowles. I would have been okay with McCagnon, but if excuse me, I thought they were going to fire Todd Bowles' ass and bring in a sensible coach that would get away from the fucking ground and pound game that Rex Ryan started.
Yeah, well, essentially, what we need to take into consideration is they've overachieved considering where they were projected to finish when the season began, because they were expecting them to be winless, and the fact that they go from winless to 5-10, that's not bad. I mean, it's not good, but baby steps.
Better than the Giants. Sorry to say.
You're right.
They face planted right into a fucking Cuisinart. We know that.
Well, yeah. But I would. Wow. Excuse me. I was going to say that's a partial victory, but the way that this team is going, they need wide receiver help. They need running back help. They need a quarterback. They need everything.
So they really should have come up with a better list to Santa. Actually,
basically, this is Santa bringing the Jets a lump of coal by signing these extensions.
No. At least the lump of coal is something new. This is regifting.
I guess. I mean, nope, I'm not going to make that joke because I'm trying to be a somewhat appropriate podcast. Because Nick knows if I make that joke, he'll just get angry with me. But
we know where you were heading with that.
But
pump the brakes.
Yeah, I'm going to pump the brakes on that one. But basically, the Jets have a lot to figure out, and they basically took one step farther back by signing these extensions.
Yes, they did. But you know what? Like most things, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens.
I guess so. And you know what? I think that I can't remember the wide receiver's name in the Jets right now. Skinner?
Skinner?
The guy with the dreadlocks.
Oh, damn it! Can't remember his name.
He's a young player that they just drafted, I think, a year ago. But he looked really good at the wide receiver position. I'm gonna have to look it up, but he looked good. He was a bright situation. Robbie Anderson.
Yep, Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, Robbie Anderson. He did seem very good as a young wide receiver this year for the Jets.
He was probably the biggest.
I'm not saying there's not potential there, but in order to get the most out of that potential, you might want to think about bringing a new voice in.
No, you need to, and obviously they're not going to do that anymore because they signed Todd Bowles to a 2-year extension. So I guess New York football fans, I should say, you're going to fucking suffer for the next 2 years.
We're sorry. We're sorry, everybody.
Sorry.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a Cheap Seat Sports production. So let's move on to baseball.
Baseball.
Yeah, baseball, which really hasn't been in the limelight, but the offseason has made some interesting storylines, and actually, a move just happened about 40 minutes ago, actually.
Ooh.
So, we all know about Wade Davis, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So, Wade Davis is heading to the Rocky Mountains.
Really?
He's heading to Colorado, everybody.
Oh my.
He's gonna get, you know what that means, right, guys?
What?
That means he can get as high as he wants.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's always a job perk if you're into it, but I hope you like home runs because you're gonna be craning your neck backwards a lot, Wade.
I can't believe he signed with Colorado after being with the Cubs. I mean, I don't. It's probably a money thing.
Maybe
It is a money thing.
Maybe he likes reclamation projects. I don't know.
Actually, he signed a 3-year, $52 million deal to go to Colorado.
God damn.
And he's a closer.
See, that's the Aroldis Chapman effect. Because the Yankees paid an exorbitant for a closer amount of money, now you're going to start to see, that's the baseline price for quote unquote top of the line closers. And I'm not saying Wade Davis is, top of the line. He's top of the line in this free agent market.
Well,
in terms of the free agent market this year, next year's gonna be fun.
Just to give context, Aroldis Chapman signed a 5-year, $75 million deal as a closer.
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that is, and compared to what Chapman got, this is, I wouldn't say it's a bargain, but it's a little bit of a discount.
A little bit, but I'm surprised he went to Colorado, and I don't know how to explain it. Okay, some interesting NFL news just broke, but we'll get to that in a second. But let's finish baseball. So there's an interesting story going around. We all know about Manny Machado, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do.
How he's not happy with the situation in Baltimore. Baltimore's not happy with their situation. They have an aging owner right now who's in his late 80s, early 90s. And they're not going anywhere. They signed Chris Davis last offseason to a ridiculous contract that they shouldn't have signed. And now they're not competing. So he wants to be traded or he wants to test the free agent market after this coming season. And the Yankees were in on it. The Phillies were in on it. The White Sox were in on it. And now we have no resolution. So what are your thoughts right now with this situation?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about this little situation with Baltimore. Now, let's take this into consideration that Machado technically has 1 year on his contract left. And, somebody like Machado, as much as I felt like, he had a bit of a down year when it came to his batting average, he still had some good stuff with home runs, RBIs, etc. So nobody's going to want him on 1 year. But the Orioles are not going to let anybody, take that day, whatever day it is, limit to try to sign him to an extension. So it's like, what's the point?
Well, I think the situation you have at this point is teams are afraid to make the deal because they don't know if they're going to have him after the season. So
Exactly.
and also the stupid thing that the team is doing is they're not allowing a 72 right, the 72-hour negotiating window. So first of all, I think that's ridiculous. That's going to lower the value on how much you get in a trade.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
So
let's
the Orioles have nobody
not,
to blame but themselves for this.
yeah, and let's not pretend that he's going to stay. I mean, if they don't trade him, he is going to walk next year like a pair of old boots.
And consider how much that man is going to get. He is going to get a lot of money.
I mean, if Stanton got his 325 or whatever, what do you think Machado's going to get?
A lot more, baby. A lot more.
And then think about that when Harper hits the market the year after that.
No, they hit the market.
Oh, are they getting the market together? Oh God, can you imagine what market, the bidding market, they're going to cause?
$500 million. That's
Harper.
with a B, folks.
For Harper.
Next year's free agent market is going to be insane.
It's going to be apocalyptic, I should say, because so much money is being thrown around. That's why so many teams are trying to get below the tax threshold, the 197.
Right. The only downside to that is that means they're not in negotiations for any of the people that they would normally be in negotiations for. Like, it's hurting some people's market value for this year.
Yeah. So with that in mind, you would think that the prevailing school of thought would be get what you can now, because it's going to be too expensive next offseason. So you would think that the hot stove would be progressing a lot faster than it actually is.
Well, I think what's going to happen is the Yankees are going to be in on one of those two guys, unfortunately, in the free agency in the offseason. They were going to go after both. Now I think it's only going to be one. So
yeah.
I'm not sure how this situation is going to be handled, but I think the amount of money, you could see $1 billion go by in the next free agency period, next offseason.
Mm-hmm.
We're not that far off from somebody actually signing $1 billion contract.
And this is why we can't afford to go to games. This is why a family of four can't afford to go to games. This is why we can't afford concessions. This is why we can't afford travel to games. This is a whole fuckery because of the amount of money these athletes make.
Just watch it on TV. Do what I do.
But
No,
no,
but,
but every once in a while you want to go.
And that's the thing. That's the thing about one thing that bothers me about the Marlins situation. It's because, like, how many people are actually going to the Marlins games? How many people were going before? And they say, they're not going to go now because of all the moves Jeter's making. Oh, we're going to have you guys going before the games, because I always thought Marlins Stadium was freaking empty.
it was.
You just reminded me of something, actually. The Dan Lebitard interview with Rob Manfred, because now, if anyone saw that interview, I happen to have seen it. And
maybe a little uncomfortable, to be honest.
But you know what? Major League Baseball's being a bitch because they came to ESPN and said, we're not happy because you treated our commissioner like shit. Wah, wah. And I'm like, really? Get over it.
It's Dan Lebitard. I'll just say that.
No, but not only that, but Major League Baseball, wah. You made a major deal with ESPN to have your games on their network. Shut the fuck up and take it.
Well, I mean, they could. That's certainly one way of seeing it. But look, we know that the amount of diehard. Well, if anything, that meeting that Jeter had with the season ticket holders a couple of weeks back really showed me that I used to think that Marlins fans, well, diehard Marlins fans, you could fit them all on a bus and still have room for a choir to be there with them. But still, it showed me that, Jesus, people do care about this team. There might not be that many, but they do.
They do, but here's the problem.
You're not going to games. That team isn't getting any revenue.
Well, right. That was going to be my point. But at the same time, they're averaging under 16,000 fans a game. You can't support a team on 16,000 fans a game. It just won't happen.
And now I think they're overcorrecting because we had just heard that they were trying to now offload after an off season where so far they've unloaded D. Gordon, Giancarlo Stanton, and Marcelo Zuna. They're trying to do the same for Christian Yelich and JT Realmuto. And now they're asking for a haul in prospects.
No, but this is 2003 and 1997 all over again from the standpoint of, all right, except for the World Series part, but we won a World Series and now we're going to dump everybody because we're the Marlins and we're cheap assholes.
Yeah, but you can't give your 3 best players away already for basically relative pittances and then ask for the farm for guys that are not up to their talent level. I mean,
but here's another issue, okay? Here's another issue. So everyone's getting on the Yankees because they were able to make a deal with the Marlins for Stanton for essentially a couple of hams and some baseball bats and baseballs. So, you know what? That's not the Yankees' fault. They're the only ones who could really absorb that whole contract.
Also, keep in mind this, they made deals with the Giants and Cardinals, and Stan used his no-trade clause on them. And remember this, it wasn't Jeter who gave him the no-trade clause. That was Loria.
Well, Loria was one of the worst owners in NFL and MLB history. So,
and the entire state of Florida would agree with you.
Now, if I could make one, statement or commission here, if I was in charge of baseball, and I know that's a lot, that's saying a lot. If I were in charge of Major League Baseball, that might be a travesty. But I would say remove the no trade clause from baseball. I'm sorry, it's got to go. It's giving Major League Baseball players too much power.
You know, the NBA has it, and people don't bitch about that.
Yeah, but the NBA has a salary cap rule.
You know what? You still want the players to be happy, right?
Yes, but the no trade clause gives the player power when they're not happy. Look at the Carmelo Anthony situation in New York.
But still, I mean, it's not just all about one player; it's about every player.
No, I understand, but I'm talking.
In that case, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
No, but if you have a no trade clause, it basically stops the team from making the deal that's best for them.
It all depends on how you swing it, I suppose.
But if you think about it, with the Marlins situation and Stanton, they probably would have gotten more out of the Giants and the Cardinals than they did from the Yankees.
Oh, they definitely would have, or they would have at least forced the Yankees to give up Frazier or Justice Sheffield or Gleyber Torres.
Right, but I don't know. But long story short, I think the no trade clause has to go. I know it's never going to happen because the MLBPA will throw a shit fit before that ever happens. But the one last thing I wanted to get to was the White Sox, because the White Sox, keep getting in on these deals. And another guy that's on the trade market right now, like you mentioned, was Yelich and J2 Rulinello, who
Realmuto.
I can't pronounce his name, whatever. So basically, sorry, but these guys are top level guys apparently to them, and they want like 3 or 4 prospects just for the 2 guys alone. Top level prospects.
Yeah, that's the point I was making earlier.
Fuck the Marlins. I'm done.
I'm just going to say this. I don't care who you side with, whether it's Jeter or whether it's the fans or player. I'm just going to say this. You guys as a community, because yes, you team, owner, fans, you are all a community, better come together and support this team. Because if you don't, I know a city up in America's hat that is begging for a baseball team to come back. And if that happens, you know which team is going to relocate? It is going to be the Marlins.
They'll have to learn to speak Quebecois.
Exactly.
I knew you were going to go there.
God, I miss the Expos.
You realize that they were only drawing like 5,000 fans to the stadium a game.
The fans were very passionate. They're more passionate than Marlins fans.
It's not going to happen. At least not for the time being. It's not going to happen.
Well, even if it's not Quebec, they'll take the Marlins and put them in another place where it will support a team.
Ottawa, Calgary.
Well, now you're talking hockey categories, but you're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a cheap seat sports production on the Undetermined Podcast Network. Lots to get to. We covered some NFL, some Major League Baseball, and actually, I wanted to get to a piece of NFL news that broke in the land of the cheeseheads. And no, Aaron Rodgers is fine, even though he was put on IR for the rest of the season, but that's not the news.
Well, there's a news element there.
Let me guess. They cryogenically froze him.
No, I think you're talking about Walt Disney, but that's a different story.
Well, now here's the thing about Rodgers. Now all these owners are coming out with an argument of now, according to NFL rules, he has to be released.
I saw that, but you know what? The NFL owners can go take a bath, for crying out loud. I could give two shits.
It's also not going to happen, but I understand their point why it's not going to happen because yes, Rodgers is one of the NFL's golden boys.
Well, yeah, he could put him up there with Tom Brady, where they get special treatment, including getting calls from the referees on the Kelvin Benjamin touchdown. But we'll get to that in the rapid rundown.
That was stupid.
But in the land of the cheeseheads, the Packers are signing wide receiver Devontae Adams to a 4-year extension worth $58 million and an $18 million signing bonus to sign, and $32 million in the first 2 years. And that's from Ian Rappaport. Good sign, bad sign. What do you think?
Well, the team is snake bit anyway, so let's not. Let's not
here. I mean, I'll give credit to where credit's due. Rhett Hundley did as fine of a job as he could have trying to quarterback this team, but it's been a year to forget in Cheesehead land.
Yeah.
Well, besides the frozen weather,
it's about goddamn time we have a playoff without them.
Hey, it's like the Packers and the Patriots, though. You kind of need them for people to watch football, though.
Do you, though? I don't think you do.
I mean, this year, with the amount of talent in the NFC, I don't think the Packers are necessary with all the teams, all the talent, all the stacked, stars in the NFC. And let's look at the NFC right now. It's going to be the Eagles, the Vikings, the Saints, the Rams. Just for those 4 teams alone, I'm excited to watch the NFC playoffs.
There's one wild card team, though, and that I really, just in general, throughout all the NFL playoffs, I'm going to want to watch, and it's the Jaguars.
That too, in the AFC. They're in the AFC though, but yes, I'm interested in seeing what they can do because, defense wins championships, and they've got a hell of a defense.
The problem is they got to come through offensively, and they're not going to be able to just win on defense alone.
Yeah.
Also, Blake Bortles.
Yeah, Blake Bortles is Blake
qualifier. Just Blake Bortles.
Yeah, it's not really a qualifier. That's more of like nothing. But
what's a Blake Bortles?
It's Blake Bortles, yeah. It's like Tebowing, except with Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles sounds like some kind of weird English tea.
I will take a spot of Bortel.
Sir, I will have a spot of the Blake Bortles, if you don't mind.
Oh, man. But
I'm not going to do that again, so don't ask.
No, don't. But basically, there's been a lot of news. We've seen a lot of stuff going on, and I don't know. Where do you guys feel like going at this point?
Actually, but what's left?
You want to go to the polls?
You know what? Yeah, because I'm finishing something up right now, so we have to hold on the rapid rundown. So let's do the polls. Let's talk about our year-end polls on Twitter. People, go vote.
Yeah, go vote. And I already see one of your polls did well. We won't say the reason why, but we had one poll do well. Now, I have to go back to where you put your first poll. All right, I found it.
So basically on our Twitter page at the UDUP, we're coming up with some year-end polls, and they're all open until midnight on New Year's Day. So everybody go vote for what you think were some of the best things, some of the worst things, etc. about 2017.
What we want is passion, negatively or positively, anything that made you feel in 2017. We want to hear about it.
All right, so poll number 1. What was the best game in sports in 2017? Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, college football, basically anything. College hoops, college basketball, wherever you want to go. Alabama versus Clemson for the BCS. Falcons versus Pats, Super Bowl 51. Houston versus LA in World Series Game 2. That was probably one of the best games in the World Series.
I should clarify. Twitter only allowed us to put 4 options, so I put 3 and then an other with the thing to leave a reply. So that's all you're going to get if you look on Twitter.
So, of those 3 options or the other, where do you guys stand?
I'm probably going to go with World Series Game 2. This was probably one of the best World Series I think we've ever seen in recent history. I think the Houston Astros and LA Dodgers put on a hell of a show. I think Game 5 comes in at a close second with all the home runs hit, all the extra inning drama. It was great.
There was like 8 home runs in that extra inning game, I think.
Exactly. Just the whole series, there was a bunch of home runs.
I'm gonna agree with Tom on this one. I mean, there were moments in this World Series that I have never seen before, and I'm pretty sure I won't see again. I mean, even the pitching performances that we were able to get, I mean, is stellar. It's
for the most part, there were some stinkers,
but I'm going to agree with the two of you that Houston versus LA World Series Game 2 was probably the best game in sports of 2017 because it's just the way the whole series went. That game really turned it for Houston because they really didn't have a voice really until this season. And now you have guys like Altuve, you have George Springer, George Springer. Right. And they finally came through, and these are young guys, young kids, I should say. And now they have the World Series championship, the experience, and they're probably going to be good for the next 5 to 7 years at least.
I will say this, 2017 in baseball, and there's no better example of the Houston Astros, showed us that there's talent on the rise. The future is now. We're about to see a whole bunch of talent everywhere in baseball.
It's a baseball renaissance, the likes we haven't seen since probably the mid-90s.
Absolutely. All right. So what's next, Nick? Which one is next?
Next end of 2017 poll for this year in sports. What was the biggest sports story in 2017? Biggest here will be defined as one that may or may not produce a good/bad feeling, but rather had an impact, great magnitude, or crossed into other areas.
All right, I'm going to let you two go first for this one.
Well, I'll give the choices. So, the NFL versus President Trump, Mayweather versus McGregor, Super Bowl 51 comeback/choke, or other.
Okay. So,
I know what you're going to say, Nick.
I know, of course you know what I'm going to say. It's the NFL versus Trump, and my personal feelings aside, it had the biggest impact because we're still talking about it. It was something that did not stop at any point during this year. I mean, I can point to at least a dozen episodes where we've had to talk about, the NFL doing this or kneeling, and with Trump, it's just you could not get away from it. Regardless of what side of the fence you may fall on, if you support the president, if you support the players, if you do this or that, it's just it had the biggest impact because it was like the sports version of an octopus. Its tentacles were just everywhere.
It's an interesting way of putting it. Excuse me. I would say I agree with you. I would say the NFL versus President Trump was the biggest sports story in 2017 because it was just constant fodder from the standpoint of, all right, what is President Trump going to say about the NFL now? What's he going to say about this owner? What's he going to say about that owner? What's he going to say about Colin Kaepernick? Is he going to call Colin Kaepernick a you-know-what, which I won't say on here? And he basically dominated the headlines from the standpoint of the NFL needs to do this, and Roger Goodell needs to do this, and Roger Goodell should not be the commissioner, and Jerry Jones this, and it's just a matter of, all right, we've had enough. It's dominating social media. The NFL, and I guarantee you the NFL was getting off on this because it was getting their brand out there because everyone was talking about the NFL. So it is the NFL versus President Trump. It is the most dominant story.
I am going to agree with you guys. I am going to say that it is the NFL versus President Trump for all the reasons you said, for the reason that it crossed over into other territories. Like it became more, not just a sports thing or a politics thing, the two areas crossed, became a mainstream issue, and it was all over the news networks. But I am going to give some love to another one of the picks. I'm also going to give some love. You guys know what I'm going to go with as a runner-up, Mayweather versus McGregor.
Shocker.
Mayweather versus McGregor. But listen, Mayweather versus McGregor just crossed into other ventures, and Mayweather versus McGregor brought like all the casual fans out, and then suddenly it's like, oh, this is something going to be interesting. We had never seen a boxing versus MMA guy in a boxing ring before. We wanted to see if Conor could truly knock out Floyd Mayweather within, or we wanted to see the destruction of Conor McGregor. But instead, we got a fight that went 10 rounds and actually earned a lot of good reviews across the board, even if it had a $100 price tag with it.
People thought he was going to get knocked out in the first round.
Exactly.
So,
and that's the other thing. Yeah. And it brought boxing, which had long been, considered a dead sport, into a limelight again. It got people talking about it again. And it got fervor, with people talking about boxing in 3 weeks later when they had Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin for the unified middleweight title. Of course, there's another reason that fight was talked about.
Oh, yes. And you're right. Where boxing seems to have a lot more eyeballs on it than years past. I mean, when was the last time most of the country was paying attention to boxing?
The 90s, when you had the big heavyweights like Tyson and Holyfield and George Foreman even still competed in the early 90s. When the 90s, the heavyweight scene was on fire. And funny enough, one of the big things, I'm writing a story right now, one of the big things when it comes to boxing for 2018 is its heavyweight scene. You got 3 champions, Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker, Deontay Wilder. So we're trying to see if there can be one unified champion at the end of that year.
It's worth taking a look at, but the funny thing about the Mayweather-McGregor fight is it forced me to do my impression of Conor McGregor, which kind of sounds like the Lucky Charms elf after a stroke.
I remember that. Can you do it again?
It's Lucky after a traumatic head injury.
I gotta hear that again,
please. I need to hear it again.
Because it's McGregor dollars. You can't spend it on anything.
One round.
That's all I need. Wow. Just one round and a pint of Guinness.
It's magically delicious.
Please stop. Please stop me. I'm not going to. Please.
Oh, God. You're listening to Unspoken Podcast, the Cheap Seat Sports production, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. As you can hear, we're having a lot of fun as we get to the end of the year. This is our last podcast, episode 50 for the year, coming up on the year anniversary of this podcast. Let's move on to the next poll, shall we?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
So, number 3 on the end of 2017 polls. What was the biggest sports media dud of 2017? The year of 2017 at ESPN, Fox Sports is Jamie Horowitz being fired, declining NFL ratings, or maybe one of your own?
I am actually going to have an answer for this, and I'm going to say because I only had, the 3 options plus the other, I could only fit one thing about ESPN, but I am, for my answer, going to just say, as a general and whole, 2017 at ESPN was absolute garbage. And that's the thing. There's been a whole bunch of things. And regardless what you think of the Jemele Hill situation, it was just awful all around at ESPN all year long because you had the number of firings that I think affected me the most because it's like it basically said, oh, we value the talking heads more than the writers, which sucks. You have, as I said, the Jemele Hill social media situation. Their president resigned over, substance abuse stuff,
which completely came out of nowhere.
Exactly. This was terrible for ESPN.
Well, let's take a step back for a second. So let's go all the way back to April when they decided to lay off 300 workers. That was the first time they laid off people.
Right. They did 2 times this year.
Right. And then a couple months later, they laid off like another 150. Well, the first time it was on-air people. The second time it was mostly production people. Now, we saw lots of big names get let go from ESPN, guys that were used to reading, guys were used to listening on the radio, guys on the TV end.
I miss seeing John Clayton on my NFL talks when it comes to ESPN.
I think he still does his radio show in 710 Seattle for ESPN.
He does, but ESPN's just not the same.
But you know what's funny, though? They fired these guys, but they still have to pay these guys!
And that's the funny part of all of it. And I have to agree with Tom there because plus we had that whole fiasco with Bleacher Report earlier in the year that had to do with ESPN where they were basically financing a Bleacher Report branded show and then backed off when they realized, hey.
Oh, you're talking about Deadspin, right?
No.
Not Deadspin.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about Barstool?
Yeah, Barstool.
Oh, Barstool. That's not Deadspin.
You're talking about Barstool Sports, where they brought in PFT commentator and Big Cat or whatever the 2 guys were, and they were doing a 1 a.m. show on ESPN2, and after the first episode, they got canceled.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
And basically, and the first episode was supposed to have Dan Patrick on it.
But that's exactly the point. It was a giant waste of time in a year filled with mistakes and giant wastes of time. And that's not what the worldwide leader in sports, quote unquote, is supposed to be doing.
And yet I feel like I think I don't know if I showed you guys it, the one guy video that I saw, but basically I'd like his opinion that ESPN has failed to adapt to the internet age.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Kevin Stolworthy told us a year ago.
No, I agree. And I would say one other issue we have, and we're seeing it now because now I have to go find a new sports radio network to listen to because they've completely destroyed the national radio network, is they basically broke up Mike and Mike, which I don't know why they did that because they felt like they had to put Mike Greenberg on morning television, which is going to get destroyed by Morning Joe and NFL, whatever the morning football show is, Good Morning Football. And I don't get it, but that's one thing I didn't get. Now they took Ryan Russillo, decided not to bring his contract back into the mix, so now he's off the radio network, and he's leaving ESPN, actually. They're redoing their whole national lineup, which is a joke, and their TV shows are a joke. The Bomani's now off the radio. He's doing a TV show with Pablo Torre from noon to 1, which we don't even know the name of the TV show yet. So this network is a mess, and their president, John Skipper, like you said before, is resigned over substance abuse. So he can go join his friend Jamie Horowitz, and they can go in solitude together.
Ooh, now, somebody spit fire.
Now, the only thing that I think may save ESPN, like the one shining light at the end of the tunnel for this year, was that in the 21st Century Fox Disney deal, they got all of the regional networks that Fox owns. So it's like, but actions say one thing, words say another. I want them to see what they do with the regional and local networks.
Yeah, but and are you holding up this enterprise with balsa wood, wood screws and airplane glue?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting deal they made because they also got part of Hulu, which is I think they got 10 or 15% as part of the deal. Also, with all the regional sports networks, it allows them to spend less money, so maybe they'll be able to keep some of their talent, but they're going to end up firing the Fox Sports people that were part of the local networks, which hurts their credibility. But I don't know. I think it's a good deal because it gives them more assets to do things, and also they'll be able to save money because they won't have to send the network crews out to everywhere.
So there's good and bad, but it's just been a cluster, you know what, of
just say
events. But it's been a clusterfuck of events at ESPN.
Thank you. Because that's what it is.
There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's a clusterfuck. ESPN.
On to the next one, Nick. What do we got?
Oh, of course, my computer decided to go away from the polls. If you give me a second. But one last point that basically they got to figure it out. And politics is not the way to do it. Thank God they came up with that policy not to talk politics at ESPN anymore. All right. So number 4. What was the best moment in sports in 2017? And the best moment, in sports in 2017. So Clemson upsets Alabama. Luke May's buzzer beater. Super Bowl 51, Pat's comeback and first overtime or other.
I'm gonna go with a write-in on this one. I'm gonna say Houston winning the World Series.
Yeah, that was a good one. I think that was definitely one that was worth considering. Of course, I only had 3 options to put.
Yeah, well, because everything that happened in the city, Houston getting flooded and then getting hit, big time to Hurricane Harvey, it showed you just how much sports means to people. That it's not just a frivolous distraction for people. It brings them together. It imparts to them a sense of community. And the fact that we were able to see fans going back into their flooded homes in October to set up their TVs and watch the game and give people hope, give them something to take their mind off of everything just for a couple of hours at a time. It's something that's very, very admirable. It's something that we desperately need in times such as these, especially in the sports landscape, where everything's been so fragmented and everything's been so, let's say, vitriolic in sports culture and sports media culture. It's nice to actually have something pure and decent and something that actually puts a smile on your face, other than aside from a frown.
No, that's a good way to describe it. And it's close for me. I think I would write in that too. Excuse me. But there's other side notes to that situation, and not necessarily from the baseball side. Look at, oh God, why am I forgetting the guy's name all of a sudden? The guy on the Texans, J.J. Watt, who raised $37 million for Hurricane Harvey relief. $37 million!
J.J. Watt's just a hell of a human being. I'm just going to say that.
But talk about, it's hard to raise $1 million. He raised $37 million. I mean, the guy
he may be phony, but he does care.
No, he does care. So I think that would be my best moment in sports, the World Series. But I would make an argument for Clemson upsetting Alabama, because we all hate Nick Saban. We all hate the dreaded Alabama.
Any opportunity to stick it to Nick Saban is an opportunity you can't pass up, huh?
Exactly. And when Clemson and it was Dabo Swinney, right?
Yeah.
I think so. And Dabo Swinney took it to Nick Saban. I remember watching that game. I think it was on New Year's last year. I'm not the biggest college football fan. I watch, but I'm not the biggest college football fan. I was ecstatic because I don't like Nick Saban at all. Because Nick Saban is the equivalent of the NFL's Bill Belichick.
Why do most, just as a corollary, why do most college coaches sound like weird off-brand boat motors? Yes, he's the coach. He's Jim Evinrude.
Oh my God! Wow, that was insane. But yeah, I would go.
I have to do mine. I think if we're doing like just moment in general and off the field stuff, I would say the Houston winning the World Series because of all the tragedy surrounding Houston. And it was just a feel-good moment, a moment to raise things up in Houston. But I'm also going to consider Alabama Clemson. I mean, come on. A touchdown with 1 second left to beat Alabama, to upset Alabama.
That was crazy. That moment in time. I mean, you have no time to spare. You got to get that play off and hope it happens.
Exactly. And not just that, but with 1 second left, you're upsetting Alabama. And, it was the beginning of the year. Like, that established, 2017 is going to be crazy.
Right. And the way that game went, in my opinion, it was a back and forth game. And I just said, oh, something weird's going to happen. And it did. So, I don't know. But let's move on to the next poll.
Next topic.
So, what was the worst sports moment in 2017? Eli benched for Geno. Well, for people who don't know, Geno Smith. U.S., Italy, and Netherlands missing the World Cup. Phil Jackson versus Carmelo, or other.
I'm going to go with Eli and Geno. Just that might have some Giants bias in me, but God, that just put the stamp of shit on a season, a shitty season like the Giants had.
It's a stamp made of shit.
What do you say, Nick?
I'm going to go Phil Jackson versus Carmelo Anthony versus the Knicks versus Charles Oakley versus everyone. That was just, a couple of episodes ago, I was talking about showmanship bad.
Right. Yes.
I was talking about regular run-of-the-mill mediocrity, and then the kind of riding into battle on a flaming rhino. That kind of showmanship bad. This was showmanship bad because it was so inane. Every single headline with Phil Jackson and the Knicks and the whole Charles Oakley ordeal, it just crossed the barrier into obscene. Obscene. Insane, actually. Insane is a more apt word.
No, you're right.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't make this stuff up. And I'll give you my answer. My answer is kind of unique because my answer is unique because it's kind of going to go between two. So I know that's not how you're supposed to answer a poll, but excuse me. I'd say the worst sports moment in 2017 just belongs to the whole state of New York in general. Because excuse me, is because Eli getting benched for Geno, and that's even worse because he was a Jets quarterback, and you're getting replaced by a crappy quarterback to start for the Jets. And also, Phil Jackson versus Carmelo. Phil Jackson, you should have never been the GM of the Knicks. He should have never have come to New York. He was LA bound. He was getting ready to get married to, what was it, Jeannie Buss or whatever. And then they called off the wedding for whatever reason. And, like, I have no idea. Like, I was just like, oh my God. So I just say that it's all of New York.
It is. And, oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I have one more poll, which is the interesting one here. And that is, who was the best athlete in sports in 2017? Now, as you said here in the tweet, Tom, we can only give you 3 choices plus other options, so sound off in the replies. But here is the 4 options: Aaron Judge, Jose Altuve, Kevin Durant, or other.
I am going to go with Aaron.
I think I got to go to. Oh, okay. Why Judge?
I'm going to go with Aaron Judge because what he's done, no Yankee rookie has ever done. No rookie has ever done. And it got to the point where every single at-bat with him was must-see television, where you had to see what he was going to do next. And the fact that he basically went from and also ran coming out of spring training to possibly the face of this team is nothing short of astounding. And the fact that he did it in New York, which is a pressure cooker, is insane. Absolutely insane. It makes me not able to wait to see what he's going to do next.
While all that is true, I think one thing, that cost him is that, let's face it, he did have a little bit of a slump. Altuve, I'm going to give it to him because Astros won the World Series. He was an MVP. Houston, the whole story surrounding Houston, how the World Series lifted spirits after the tragedies. He player of the year was multiple outlets gave him athlete of the year. Altuve's year. This was the year of Jose Altuve.
Right. I'm going to agree with Tom. I think Jose Altuve, excuse me, was the player of the year, best athlete in sports in 2017, because for the reason that Tom said, they won the World Series. They helped lift Texas through Hurricane Harvey, also like Nick said. And I just think all the suffering the Astros went through after making the World Series in 2005 was the last time they made it against the White Sox when they won. But it's been a hell of a couple of years, and Jose Altuve has become one of the better players in all Major League Baseball, up there with Aaron Judge. But I think Jose Altuve is the better overall five-tool player at this point. So I just think Jose Altuve is the best athlete in 2017, and I'm surprised we're not even mentioning Kevin Durant or even LeBron James in that conversation.
Oh, sir.
Well,
They've done that already.
Well, the thing is, baseball, like we said, baseball's going through a renaissance. All right, guys, rapid rundown time.
All right, get your schedules ready. I'm ready.
I actually did something special. I have the ESPN playoff machine, and I'm going to go through each game for each of us. And at the end, I will say what, our playoff, what the playoff picture will look like if we get 100%.
That's interesting.
So this last week we're going to be able to do this. So, ready?
Yes.
I'm ready.
Quick, just name your picks. Green Bay versus Detroit. I'm going with Detroit.
I'm taking Detroit.
Detroit.
All right. Bengals versus Ravens. As much as well, let's face it, this one's shit. But I think the Ravens, they're fighting for a chance at the playoffs. I think you got to go with the Ravens.
Ravens.
All right, and we're 2 for 2. Texans versus the Colts.
Really? Where's the game?
Indianapolis.
Oh God, this is an awful game.
I'm gonna go with Colts because home team.
Yeah, I'm gonna do so.
God, I'm so up in the air. I don't know who to take. This is such a bad, awful game. You know what? I'm gonna go with. Oh God, I don't have a decision. I'm gonna go with Houston.
Okay. Buffalo versus Miami. I gotta take Buffalo. They're also in the fight for a playoff spot.
I'm gonna take Buffalo because again, bad game.
Jay Cutler, go fuck yourself. You should be in the booth right now. Buffalo.
Bears and Vikings.
Bears and Vikings. Well, that's easy. Vikings.
Yeah, Vikings.
All right. Saints and the Bucks. I gotta go with the Saints. They're
Saints.
They're a good team, and they're fighting for the NFC South.
Saints.
All right. Jets and the Pats.
Pats.
The Pats by a bajillion.
Do we need to say anything else? Jaguars and Titans. This one's interesting. Tight for playoff chance, but the Jags in that defense. I gotta go Jags.
Jags.
Defense wins out. I'm going Jags.
Sorry, Titans, you're not making it then. Washington and the Giants.
Redskins.
Can I go for the giant meteor? But in seeing as how I can't go for the giant meteor, I'm going to take the...
Do you want to do a tie? I can do that option.
No.
There's no ties in football. Shut up.
We know it's not going to be a tie. Let's just go with Washington.
You guys doubted me last week with Washington against the Broncos.
Yeah, because the Broncos are somewhat a team.
Well, thinking of the Broncos, it's the Broncos and the Chiefs.
They're bucking Broncos at this point.
Let's go with the Chiefs, you know?
Oh boy. Let's see. The Chiefs are falling off and Denver's a shit show. All right, let's go with the Chiefs.
Okay. Dallas and Philadelphia. I'm a bit concerned about Philadelphia. They gave up so many points and almost lost to the 2-win Giants. The offense sucked against the Raiders. Cowboys have Zeke back, and they have just one more game left. They can dominate all they want. I think the Eagles are starting to fall off the rails a bit.
Slow down.
To go with the Cowboys.
Slow down, Cowboy. No pun intended. I would say that Philadelphia's going to win this game. And I think that Dak Prescott is going to have an awful game, so I'm going Philadelphia.
I don't trust anybody who's not Carson Wentz to quarterback that team, so therefore I'm picking Dallas.
So Nick Foles has no credibility whatsoever.
I don't even
Not
know
after
what the
last
hell
game.
Nick Foles is.
Not after last game. Speaking of the Raiders, Chargers.
Chargers.
And San Francisco and the Rams. Obviously the Rams.
Yeah.
Rams.
Okay. Oh wait, that means freaking undefeated Garoppolo is going to come to an end.
Oh well.
That's okay.
Wait a minute. I guess you won't hear it anymore. 4-0. 4-0.
The Cardinals. Bucks.
Ew.
Seahawks. The Cardinals are injury ridden.
Yeah, it's just a bad game in general.
Yeah, but the Cardinals are injury ridden.
Well, that too. Yeah.
Nick?
I'm taking the Seahawks, I said.
Oh, okay. Carolina and Atlanta, NFC South title on the line. And if not, then a wild card spot's on the line.
This is the best game of the whole week.
That has the most risk involved. It has the most on the line.
Let's see. This game is at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. And no, don't get that confused for New Orleans because they both have the same sponsor. Let's see. I think Atlanta's a better home team, and I think Carolina's not that good on the road. So I'm going Atlanta.
Is that a choke? You say Atlanta's going to choke it, Nick?
Panthers.
Oh, interesting.
You know what? I'm going to join. I'm going to join you, Nick. And, boys, there's one last game. Will history be made on Sunday? It's the Browns.
Wait a minute.
Steelers.
Wait a minute. There's some interesting information. If you saw it on SportsCenter this morning, one of their players tipped off the media, one of the Pittsburgh writers, that Le'Veon Bell and Ben Roethlisberger are not playing.
Fuck it, I'm still going for history. Steelers.
No, I'm just letting you know that that's a factor.
I know. Well, speaking of which, you go back to the Rams 49ers game, Todd Gurley's not playing.
No one gives a fuck. It's the Niners. But yeah, I'm gonna go with history too and say Cleveland goes how do you say it? Defeated.
Utterly defeated. I'm gonna go with
6
the Browns.
Oh my god.
How
do we explain the Browns?
Well, exactly that. Brown.
So you're saying they're shit?
Yes. That is what I'm saying.
So to wrap a bow on our rapid rundown, looking at our playoff pictures, it appears Nick Fodera and I are in agreement. Well, actually, all three of us are in agreement when it comes to the AFC, in that we have New England and Pittsburgh as our 2 first-round byes, Jacksonville versus Los Angeles Chargers as one wild card game, and the Kansas City Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens as the other wild card game. As for the NFC, we're all in agreement that the Eagles and Vikings will be the top 2 seeds. We are in agreement that the Rams and Saints will be the 3rd and 4th seeds respectively. We're all in agreement that Carolina will be the 5th. We differ, however, when it comes to the 6th seed. Nick Fodera and I are in agreement that it would be Seattle. Meanwhile, Nick Morgasen, with his prediction of the Atlanta's win over Carolina, would have Atlanta as the 6th seed and eliminate Seattle. So the big difference is between the three of us. Nick Fodera and I have Seattle as the 6th seed for the NFC, with Atlanta missing the playoffs. Nick Morgasen has Atlanta as the 6th seed, with Seattle missing the playoffs.
This has been the 50th episode of the Unspoken Podcast. That is going to wrap up for this week. And for myself, Nick Fodera, for Tom Albano, for Nick Morgasen, we'd like to say thank you so much to all our listeners. We love you guys so much. We wish you the happiest of New Year's. So Happy New Year, everybody. You've been listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a Cheap Seat Sports production on the Undetermined Podcast Network. For Tom Albano and Nick Morgasen, I'm Nick Fodera. Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Good night.